The quantum drive's death scream echoed through the research vessel's hull as Commander Sarah Chen fought to keep the ship from tearing itself apart. Warning lights bathed the bridge in crimson as the artificial gravity flickered, sending loose objects flying in random directions. The anomaly they'd been studying had suddenly expanded, catching them in its gravitational wake. "Computer, status report." Sarah barked, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Hull integrity at 47%. Primary and secondary power cores offline. Emergency systems engaged. Detecting Class M planet within emergency landing range. Sarah's jaw tightened as she reviewed her options. The rest of the crew had already evacuated in the long-range pods, leaving her to pilot the dying vessel to safety. Standard protocol would have her abandon ship too, but the research data they'd collected was too valuable to lose. The planet grew larger in her view screen, a jewel of purple oceans and emerald continents wreathed in pearlescent clouds. Beautiful, but also her only chance for survival. As she began the entry sequence, the ship's remaining sensors detected something unusual. Massive crystalline structures on the surface, too regular to be natural. "Computer, analyze those structures. Natural or artificial?" "Analysis incomplete. Insufficient power for detailed scans. Warning. Atmospheric entry in 30 seconds. The ship screamed as it hit the upper atmosphere, the heat shield already compromised from the anomaly's effect. Sarah activated the emergency landing protocols, watching as segments of the outer hull peeled away like autumn leaves. The ground rushed up to meet her, a mosaic of bioluminescent forest and crystalline spires. The impact came faster than expected. Sarah's crash restraints dug into her shoulders as the ship plowed through a canopy of towering trees that glowed with internal light. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was a group of tall, elegant figures approaching the wreckage, their skin emitting a soft blue radiance. When Sarah awoke, she found herself in a chamber that seemed to have been grown rather than built. The walls pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, creating patterns that somehow felt both alien and soothing. Her environment suit had been removed, but her vital sign implant indicated the atmosphere was safe to breathe. "The stranger awakens," came a melodious voice that seemed to resonate directly in her mind. Sarah turned to face the speaker and found herself looking up at one of the tallest humanoids she'd ever seen. The being stood nearly 3 meters tall, with graceful proportions and skin that rippled with patterns of living light. Its features were eerily beautiful, almost human, but with an otherworldly symmetry that spoke of careful genetic engineering. "I am Nyara, first speaker of the luminary," the being continued, now speaking in accented but understandable English. "Your arrival was unexpected." Sarah tried to sit up, fighting off a wave of dizziness. "Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Science Vessel Hawking. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. We encountered an anomaly that damaged our ship." Nyara's skin patterns shifted to something Sarah interpreted as curiosity. "We observed the anomaly. It is one of many that have appeared in our system recently. They are of great concern to us. We were studying them," Sarah explained, carefully testing her limbs for injury. "Our data might help understand what's causing them, but my ship's computer core needs power to access it." The tall alien's expression changed subtly. "That may be problematic. Our council has strict rules about sharing technology with outsiders. The last time we did so, it nearly led to our extinction." Sarah noticed other luminary gathering at the chamber's entrance, their skin patterns displaying a rainbow of emotions she couldn't yet interpret. She realized she would need to navigate a complex cultural and political landscape if she wanted to access her ship's data or have any hope of contacting Earth. "I understand the need for caution," Sarah said carefully. "Perhaps we could start with an exchange of scientific knowledge. The anomalies threaten both our peoples. Working together might benefit us all." Nyara's skin flickered with what might have been approval. "A reasonable proposal. But first, you must undergo the trials of understanding. It is our way of ensuring that visitors grasp the depth of our culture and the responsibility that comes with knowledge. Sarah nodded, remembering her xenoanthropology training. First contact situations often hinged on respecting local customs while carefully advancing mutual interests. I would be honored to learn your ways. As if in response to her acceptance, the chamber's bioluminescence brightened, and the patterns on the walls shifted to match those flowing across Mayara's skin. The other luminary moved closer, their own patterns synchronizing in what Sarah guessed was some form of consensus. "Then let us begin," Nayara announced. "But be warned, Commander Chen. The trials will test more than your physical capabilities. They will probe the very essence of what you are, and what you might become." As Sarah stood to follow her new hosts, she caught a glimpse through a crystal window of the forest where her ship had crashed. The bioluminescent trees seemed to pulse in rhythm with the luminary skin patterns, suggesting a level of biotechnology far beyond humanity's current understanding. She had a feeling that surviving the crash might have been the easiest part of her journey. The first rays of the system's twin suns crept over the horizon, casting double shadows through the crystal spires. Sarah squared her shoulders and took her first step toward whatever challenges awaited. She didn't know if she would ever see Earth again, but she knew that the next few days would change her life, and possibly the future of human-alien relations, forever. The first trial began at dawn. Sarah stood at the edge of a vast bioluminescent grove, where crystal-like trees pulsed with internal light in perfect synchronization with the patterns flowing across Mayara's skin. The tall luminary had explained that their civilization was built on the principle of harmony, not just between individuals, but with the living technology that sustained their world. "To understand us," Nayara explained, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of tradition, "you must first learn to listen to the song of life." Sarah watched in fascination as Nayara pressed her long fingers against one of the trees. The bioluminescent patterns shifted, creating a mesmerizing dance of light that spread through the entire grove. The air itself seemed to vibrate with a subtle frequency that made Sarah's skin tingle. "Your species relies on machines, dead things that follow rigid rules," Nayara continued. "We shape life itself, guide it, grow with it. Show me you can hear the song." Sarah approached the nearest tree hesitantly. Her scientific training screamed for analysis, for sensors and data collection, but she forced herself to push past those instincts. She placed her hand against the smooth, crystalline bark and closed her eyes. At first, there was nothing. Then, slowly, she began to feel it. A rhythm, like a heartbeat but more complex. The longer she listened, the more layers she could distinguish. The slow pulse of nutrients flowing through the tree's crystalline structure, the faster flutter of energy exchanges between neighboring plants, and an underlying harmony that connected everything. "It's like a biological network," Sarah whispered, eyes still closed, "but more elegant than anything we've created. The trees aren't just communicating. They're sharing resources, balancing the entire ecosystem in real time." When she opened her eyes, she found Mayara studying her with an expression that might have been surprise. The patterns flowing across the alien skin had shifted to a new configuration she hadn't seen before. "You understand more quickly than most," Nayara acknowledged. "But understanding is only the beginning. Now you must learn to join the song." The next 3 days tested Sarah in ways her training never had. She learned to interpret the subtle variations in luminary bioluminescence that conveyed layers of meaning beyond their spoken words. She studied their living architecture, watching in amazement as they sang structures into existence, their harmonized patterns encouraging crystal-like growths to form specific shapes. But it wasn't all wonder and discovery. During her brief rest periods, Sarah worked desperately to repair her ship's communication array, hoping to contact Earth. The luminary provided her with basic materials but seemed hesitant to offer their more advanced biotechnology. On the 4th day, she discovered why. Sarah was deep in the crystal forest with Ela, a younger luminary scientist who had been assigned to study her in return for being studied. They had developed an easy rapport, sharing stories about their respective civilizations, scientific discoveries. Your people's quantum drive is fascinating, Ela commented, her skin patterns showing genuine interest. The way you've harnessed vacuum energy without biological interfaces, we would never have thought to attempt it that way. Sometimes the simple solutions are the best, Sarah replied, then noticed Ela's patterns shift to something she'd learned to recognize as concern. What's wrong? Ela was quiet for a moment, her patterns cycling through various emotional states. I should not say this, but you deserve to know. The anomalies you were studying. They're not natural phenomena. Sarah felt her breath catch. What do you mean? They're symptoms, Ela explained, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. Our world is dying, Commander Chen. The biological network that sustains our civilization is breaking down, and we don't understand why. The anomalies are like immune responses from the planet itself. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. She thought about the data stored in her ship's computer core, data that might help understand these anomalies. But more importantly, she thought about the luminary children she'd seen playing in the crystal gardens, their skin patterns bright with joy and innocence. Why hasn't anyone told me this before? She asked. The Council fears outside intervention. The last time we accepted help from another species, Ela's patterns darkened with what Sarah had learned to recognize as grief. They tried to improve our biological technology. Their changes cascaded through the network, causing devastating mutations. We lost an entire continent before we could contain it. Sarah thought about her own civilization's history of well-intentioned disasters. I understand their caution, but Ela, the data we collected about the anomalies, it might help. And if we combine it with your understanding of the biological network. She was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the crystal trees around them. In the distance, a portion of the forest's bioluminescence flickered and died, leaving an ominous dark patch in the usually brilliant landscape. Ela's patterns shifted to alarm. It's happening faster now. The dead zones are spreading. Sarah made a decision. Protocol dictated that she wait for official first contact procedures, for careful diplomatic negotiations. But she hadn't become a scientist by always following the rules. Help me convince the Council, she said. My people's technology combined with your biological science. We might be able to find a solution together. Ela's pattern swirled with conflicting emotions before settling into a resolute configuration. The third trial was supposed to be tomorrow, but perhaps saving our world is the greatest test of understanding we could ask for. As they hurried back toward the Crystal City, Sarah couldn't help but notice more dark patches appearing in the forest. The song of life she'd learned to hear was becoming discordant, like an orchestra slowly losing its players one by one. The race against time had begun, and the stakes were higher than any trial the luminary could have designed. Sarah just hoped that the trust she'd built over the past few days would be enough to convince them to accept her help before it was too late. The council chamber was a massive geodesic sphere grown from living crystal, its walls thrumming with the combined bioluminescence of 50 luminary elders. Sarah stood before them, trying to keep her voice steady as she presented her findings. The data from my ship's sensors shows that the anomalies aren't random, she explained, gesturing to the holographic display Ela had helped her interface with their systems. They'd form a pattern, a perfect geometric grid extending through subspace. The Council's collective patterns shifted through shades of skepticism and concern. First Speaker Naira, who had become something of an advocate for Sarah, leaned forward. Explain the significance of this pattern. It's artificial, Sarah continued, too precise to be natural, and it originates from somewhere deep beneath the planet's surface. This revelation sent ripples of agitated light patterns through the assembled council. An elder whose patterns identified her as archive keeper, Mira, spoke up, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. There are stories, Mira began hesitantly, passed down from the time before we achieved harmony with the world. Tales of those who came before us, who shaped this planet, and then vanished. Sarah and Ela exchanged glances, They had spent the last week analyzing data from both human and luminary sources, and this might be the missing piece they needed. "We need to investigate the source," Sarah pressed. "The anomalies are getting worse because something down there is responding to a threat, real or perceived. It's like an immune system attacking healthy tissue because it can't identify the difference between friend and foe." A younger council member's patterns flared with anger. "You suggest we dig into the sacred earth, disturb the foundations of our world based on the theories of an outsider. We disturb it by doing nothing," Ela countered, her own patterns bright with conviction. "The dead zones spread daily. The song grows weaker. If Commander Chen is right, we're not fighting a natural disaster. We're fighting an ancient defense system that doesn't recognize us as the planet's rightful inhabitants." The chamber erupted in overlapping patterns of light and emotion. Sarah watched the debate unfold in ripples of color and light, wishing she could understand all the nuances of their luminescent language, but she could read enough to know they were divided. Finally, Naira raised her hands for silence. "We will meditate on this matter. Until then." She was interrupted by a violent tremor that shook the crystal chamber. The bioluminescent patterns in the walls flickered erratically, and through the transparent ceiling, Sarah saw something that made her blood run cold. A massive anomaly had appeared directly above the city. "We don't have time to meditate," Sarah insisted. "That anomaly is larger than any I've recorded. If it's part of the defense grid, it could tear this entire region apart." Ela stepped forward, her patterns radiating determination. "I can take Commander Chen to the deep archives. There are maps from the ancient times. They might show us how to reach the system's control center. The archives are forbidden to outsiders," the angry council member protested. "Then it's fortunate I'm not going as an outsider," Sarah responded, her voice firm. "I'm going as someone who has learned your songs, shared your harmony, and wants to preserve it. Would you rather protect your secrets or save your world?" The chamber fell silent. Even the angry council members' patterns dimmed in contemplation. Naira looked between Sarah and the growing anomaly visible above them, her own patterns showing a complex mix of emotions. "Go," she finally commanded. "Take what you need from the archives. But understand this, if you are wrong, if your actions bring harm to our world, not even our newfound friendship will protect you." Sarah nodded grimly. "If I'm wrong, there might not be a world left to protect." She and Ela rushed from the chamber as another tremor shook the city. As they ran through the crystal corridors toward the archives, Sarah noticed more dark patches appearing in the living architecture around them. The song of life that had become so familiar to her was developing discordant undertones, like an instrument slowly going out of tune. The archives were housed in a structure that plunged deep into the planet's crust, its walls lined with crystal matrices that stored millennia of luminary knowledge. As they descended in a gravity-defying liquid crystal transport, Ela's patterns showed growing anxiety. "Even if we find the location of the control center," she said, "reaching it won't be easy. The deep layers have been abandoned for generations. No one knows what we'll find down there." Sarah checked the power cell on her repaired laser cutter. "Whatever we find, it can't be worse than what will happen if that defense system continues to attack the planet." The transport came to a stop at a level so deep that the walls no longer pulsed with bioluminescence. Instead, they encountered something neither of them had expected. Artificial lights, ancient and dim, but still functioning after untold ages. "These aren't luminary technologies," Ela whispered, her patterns reflecting awe and unease. "No," Sarah agreed, studying the angular, decidedly non-organic architecture around them. "I think we just found out what happened to the civilization that came before you." As they stepped out of the transport, their lights revealed corridors lined with dormant machines and dark display screens. And on the walls, repeated in regular intervals, was a symbol that made Sarah's scientific mind race with implications. A double helix intertwined with a perfect geometric pattern, the same pattern they'd observed in the anomalies above. The mystery of the planet's previous inhabitants was about to be revealed. The only question was whether that revelation would come in time to save the luminary from their world's ancient guardians. The ancient facility stretched before them like a technological labyrinth. Sarah's handheld scanner struggled to make sense of the materials around them. Alloys and composites that didn't match anything in its database. Ila's bioluminescent patterns provided most of their lighting, casting shifting shadows along the angular corridors. "Look at these markings," Sarah said, studying the walls. "They're not just decorative. They're mathematical sequences, instructions written in pure numbers." Ila pressed her hand against one of the wall panels, her patterns shifting to confusion. "There's no song here. No harmony. How could they build something so disconnected from life?" Another tremor shook the facility, sending cascades of ancient dust raining down from above. Sarah's communicator crackled with Mayara's voice. "The anomalies are multiplying. The city's outer rings are being evacuated. Whatever you're going to do it quickly." They pressed deeper into the facility, following the mathematical sequences that grew more complex with each turn. Sarah's scientific training helped her recognize patterns, quantum equations, wave functions, and stranger things that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "Wait," Ila called out, her patterns suddenly bright with recognition. She rushed to a wall panel that looked different from the others, more organic, almost alive. "This is luminary work, ancient, but I can read it." Sarah joined her, watching as Ila's patterns synchronized with the faint luminescence still emanating from the panel. "What does it say?" "It's a warning left by our ancestors," Ila translated, her patterns flickering with growing concern. "They discovered this facility generations ago, when our people first achieved technological awareness. They tried to interface our biological systems with the ancient technology, hoping to improve it. Let me guess," Sarah said grimly. "It didn't go well." The facility's defense systems interpreted our ancestors' biological technology as an invasion, a virus to be eliminated. They managed to create a temporary compromise, the harmony we live in today. But the warning says it was never meant to be permanent. Another shockwave rocked the facility, stronger than before. Sarah's communicator showed multiple anomalies now converging above the city. Time was running out. "The defense grid thinks your civilization is an infection," Sarah realized. "And it's finally mounting a full immune response. That's why the anomalies are getting worse. The system is trying to sterilize the planet." Ila's patterns swirled with distress. "How do we stop it? We can't simply destroy the facility. It's integrated into the planet's core systems. It would cause an ecological collapse." Sarah studied the ancient equations surrounding them, her mind racing. 2 years of researching quantum anomalies, combined with everything she'd learned about luminary biological technology. "We don't need to destroy it. We need to teach it a new definition of life." She pulled out her ship's data core, which she brought with them. "My research on the anomalies, it's not just observations. It's a complete quantum-level analysis of how they interact with organic matter. If we can feed this data into the facility's systems, and I provide a direct neural interface through our biological technology," Ila continued, her patterns brightening with understanding. "We could show the system that technological and biological systems aren't enemies," Sarah finished. "They're just different expressions of the same fundamental patterns." They found what had to be the facility's central control room, a vast chamber dominated by a crystalline structure that pulsed with the same geometric patterns they'd observed in the anomalies. Ancient displays flickered to life as they entered, responding to their presence. Ila placed her hands on a panel that seemed designed for luminary interface, her patterns synchronizing with the dim luminescence still present in the ancient systems. Sarah connected her data core to what she hoped was a compatible port, using her suit's computer to translate the data protocols. "Ready?" she asked. Ila's patterns steadied into a determined configuration. "Ready." But Sarah, this level of direct interface, combining our technologies like this, it's never been done. The energy feedback alone could kill us. Sarah placed her hand over Ila's, feeling the subtle vibration of the alien technology beneath them. Sometimes the greatest discoveries require the greatest risks. Together. They initiated the interface sequence. Energy surged through the chamber as two radically different technological philosophies collided. Sarah felt electricity crackling across her skin as Ela's bioluminescent patterns flared brilliantly, extending into the facility's systems like rivers of living light. Through their connected hands, Sarah experienced a fraction of what Ela was feeling. The vast song of her civilization meeting the precise mathematical harmony of the ancient defense grid. For a moment, it seemed like the two systems would reject each other catastrophically. Then, slowly, the discordant energies began to align. The facility's harsh angles softened slightly as bioluminescent patterns merged with its geometric displays. Above them, through layers of rock and crystal, they could sense the anomalies changing, not disappearing, but transforming into something new. The defense grid wasn't just accepting the luminary presence now, it was learning from it, incorporating biological principles into its fundamental operations. And in return, the luminary systems were absorbing the ancient technology's precision and power. A new kind of harmony was emerging, one that bridged the gap between the organic and the artificial. As Sarah watched the transformation unfold through increasingly sophisticated sensor readings, she realized they weren't just saving a civilization. They were witnessing the birth of something entirely new. The transformation of the luminary world took 3 days to complete. Sarah watched from the crystal spires of the city as waves of luminescent energy swept across the landscape, merging the precision of ancient technology with the flowing harmony of biological systems. The dead zones were coming alive again, but in a new way. Crystalline structures grew intertwined with organic forms, creating hybrid ecosystems that pulsed with both mathematical precision and natural vitality. "The Council wishes to see you," Naira announced, her patterns showing a complexity of emotions Sarah had never seen before. "Both of you." As they ascended to the council chamber, Sarah noticed how the very architecture of the city was changing. The pure crystalline structures were developing new patterns, incorporating elements of the ancient technology while maintaining their organic grace. It was evolution happening in real time. The council chamber itself had transformed. The formerly pure bioluminescent sphere now contained geometric patterns that matched the ancient facility's design, but softened and made harmonious with luminary aesthetics. The council members' own patterns seemed to have expanded their vocabulary, incorporating some of the mathematical sequences into their emotional displays. Commander Sarah Chen, Archive Keeper Mira began, her patterns radiating formal authority. "You have altered our world forever. Some would say you have violated our most sacred principles of natural harmony." Sarah felt Ela tense beside her, but before either could speak, Mira continued. "And yet, the Elder's patterns shifted to something more complex. In doing so, you have shown us a greater harmony we had forgotten was possible. Our ancestors did not fail in their attempt to merge with the ancient systems. They simply did not have the right bridge between worlds. A bridge that perhaps only an outside perspective could provide." Nara stepped forward. "The defense grid now recognizes our civilization as part of the planet's natural order. More than that, it has begun sharing its knowledge with us. The mathematical patterns you helped decode, they speak of worlds beyond our stars, of technologies we had never dreamed of." "And what of your own knowledge?" the formerly hostile council member asked, their patterns now showing genuine curiosity rather than suspicion. "Your understanding of quantum phenomena, combined with our biological technology, offers possibilities we are only beginning to comprehend." Sarah looked at Ela, who nodded encouragingly. "I was sent here as a researcher," Sarah said. "My mission was to study anomalies, to expand human understanding of the universe. I'd say we've accomplished that mission beyond anyone's expectations. With your permission, I'd like to establish a permanent scientific exchange between our peoples." The council's patterns rippled with approval, but Naira raised a cautioning hand. "Such an exchange must be carefully managed. We have learned from our past mistakes, And from your example, that the best progress comes not from rushing to combine technologies, but from first understanding each other's ways of thinking. I volunteer to be our first ambassador to Earth, Ela announced, her patterns bright with determination. I have worked closely with Commander Chen. I understand both the potential and the risks of closer cooperation between our peoples, and I would be honored to serve as humanity's ambassador here, Sarah added. There's still so much to learn about the ancient facility, about how your biological technology is adapting to its systems. That knowledge could benefit both our civilizations. The council deliberated, their patterns flowing in complex harmonies that now incorporated both organic rhythms and geometric precision. Finally, Nera spoke for them all. It is decided. We will establish what your people call an embassy here in our city. But it will be more than a diplomatic outpost. It will be a center of learning, where both our peoples can study together, finding new ways to blend the mathematical and the organic, the technological and the biological. Sarah felt a familiar vibration and realized the song of life she'd learned to hear had changed. It was richer now, more complex, with underlying patterns that reminded her of the quantum harmonies she'd spent years studying. The planet itself was singing a new tune, one that embraced both order and chaos, technology and nature. As the council session concluded, she and Ela walked to a balcony overlooking the transformed city. The twin suns were setting, casting double shadows that seemed to dance with the new patterns of light flowing through the structures below. You know, Sarah said, when my ship crashed here, I thought I was stranded, cut off from everything I knew and understood. Instead, I found myself exactly where I needed to be, at exactly the right time. Ela's patterns showed what Sarah had learned to recognize as affectionate amusement. Perhaps that is the greatest harmony of all. The way the universe brings together what needs to be joined, even across the vast distances between stars. A communication alert chimed from the city's newly integrated systems. The first response from Earth had arrived, acknowledging their signals and expressing amazement at the preliminary data they'd sent. Soon, other human scientists and diplomats would arrive, eager to learn from the luminary, and luminary ambassadors would travel to Earth, sharing their understanding of biological technology and harmony with life. But for now, Sarah was content to watch the city shine with its new light, knowing that she had helped forge a connection between two very different ways of understanding the universe. The anomalies that had damaged her ship had led her to something far more valuable than mere research data. They had led her to a future where humanity's drive to explore and understand could blend with the luminary's commitment to harmony and life. Above them, the first stars were becoming visible in the darkening sky. Among them was the star that warmed Earth, barely visible at this distance. But the distance felt less important now. They had built a bridge between worlds, not just through technology or biology, but through the simple human desires to learn, to grow, and to find new ways of seeing the universe. The song of life played on, its melody now enriched by the mathematics of the ancients and the curiosity of humanity, creating a symphony that would echo across the stars.